What's up, guys? I wanted to make a really quick video today. It's not going to be anything too in-depth, but I wanted to point out some of the NASDAQ and S&P 500 divergences that we're seeing on the market. I think a very key thing to be paying attention to, you have to be sort of up to date with the market trends, and we can clearly see the market divergence. We can clearly see the NASDAQ strength and the S&P 500 weakness. Something to be paying attention to, making sure we know what's hot, what is not, what's maybe better to trade, what's maybe something to stay away from. This is important to understand. So we're going to do some technicals on the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and really break down the divergence that we've seen recently. I hope this video serves as a way to stay updated with the market. If you guys enjoy it, press that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So guys, I wanted to start this video off by just putting the S&P and the NASDAQ on the same chart. You guys can see that here. This is the daily chart. The white line is the NASDAQ, and the red and green candles is the S&P 500. Now, these lined up pretty decent from the start of this year, right? Right around here is year to date, or right around here is the beginning of the year, around January 1st. You can see these lined up pretty well up into this February push, lined up pretty well down into the dip in early March. Now, it wasn't until around March 14th, which is right in this general area, and that was our CPI reading in March, and that is where we started to see the NASDAQ really start to extend itself. We had a big push on the NASDAQ. We did have an upside move on the ES, the S&P 500, but it was at nowhere near the same pace that the NASDAQ started to increase. Now, the next thing you can notice is that over the last, say, month and a half, the S&P 500 right here has been pretty sideways, right? We've seen that chop. We've seen that sideways action on the S&P 500. Now, if we look at the NASDAQ at that same time period, you can see the NASDAQ has continued to make higher lows and higher highs, started pushing to the upside, where the S&P 500 has been pretty sideways. So we can see, right, as of right now, you guys probably noticed this as you're trading intraday. You are getting some pretty intense strength on the NASDAQ, where the S&P 500 has been pretty sideways. You've seen outperformance in a few tech stocks that are really helping the NASDAQ higher. Some that I can note off the top of my head, semiconductors, we've seen some very strong strength on NVIDIA, AMD lately. This is definitely helping. We've seen Meta recovering pretty well, which is definitely helping the NASDAQ as well. And recently, we've seen Amazon and Google starting to catch some momentum, helping the NASDAQ, whereas it isn't helping that S&P 500 so much, being weighted down most likely by financials. Financials, we know, have been very weak. We've seen the KRE, which is the regional bank ETF, be very weak as well. All the regional bank news that's been going on in the market, we've seen that very weak. We've seen energy pulling back as well. The bank news and the energy downside is not affecting the NASDAQ, right? The NASDAQ doesn't have those stocks in that index. So we're seeing that continuation on those tech names, helping that NASDAQ higher, where the S&P 500 is being weighted down by some of these other sectors, such as financials and energy. Now, this type of information is not something you're just going to go trade off of, but it is important to stay in tune with this type of thing going on in the market. If you're a trader, if you're an educated investor or trader, you have to know what's hot, what's not. We know that the NASDAQ is hot. We know that it's outperforming. We need to know that the S&P 500 is staying a little bit more timid, a little bit more sideways because of those sectors' underperformance as financials and energy, right? Not something that's going to make you a bunch of money because you watch this video, but something to stay informed with, and a video that I think serves a purpose, and that is why I wanted to make this in today's video. Now, let's move on, right? We can clearly see this outperformance on the NASDAQ, but let's do some technicals. Let's get an update on the NASDAQ, update on the S&P 500, get an idea of where we're trading, because the NASDAQ actually today hit a very important supply level that I want to point out in today's video. So here's the NASDAQ on the daily chart, and today we hit my 13,550 level on the NASDAQ. This was a very key level that I've been watching for quite some time. We tapped that level today and started to see some rejection off of it. So here's the 1 minute chart, and this is our 13,550 level. I actually played some NQ shorts off this level, which worked out very nicely. But we can start to see today, we had that push right into that 13,550, start to stall right here at this red zone. Now, why is this red zone important? If I go to the daily chart and I get a little bit more time here, this red zone is where the NASDAQ had previous rejections in the past. If we go over to April of 2022, which is right over here, April of 2022 is right in this zone right here. This is 13,550. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. The high of this day, which was April 25th of 2022, the high of this day was 13,549. The high of this day, 13,523. The high of this day, 13,542. The high of this day, 13,555 and 13,548. So all in this little area is 13,550, right around there, right? If we average those out, it had a little bit of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top, 5 rejections, whatever you want to call it. 5 times back in April, we tried to break that 13,550 and ultimately rejected that level. Now, if we zoom over, we can see in this general area, once again, we pushed up into this 13,550, made it up to around 13,700, ultimately rejecting to the downside. Now, if we zoom over to where the price action is today, you can see that we are right at this level. This is going to be a very interesting level on the NASDAQ. In my opinion, this is going to be a very hard level to long the NASDAQ through. It's going to be difficult to trust those upside plays. With me knowing that there's been rejections in the past, it's going to be a little bit uneasy, right? I'm going to definitely sort of scale down on the long positions. There's going to be areas that outperform, like today, for example, NVIDIA, AMD. They went straight up when the NASDAQ was rejecting the supply. So we're seeing some of those stock-specific moves, like on the semiconductors. But this is a very important level that I would be paying attention to. Anywhere in this 13,550 to 13,700 area on the NASDAQ, we can clearly see, if we go back to the daily chart, is going to be a very big area of importance here on the NASDAQ. Multiple rejections in April, rejections here. This is back in August of 2022, and you can see that we are back at this zone once again. Not going to get too in-depth in this video. If you want to get that daily in-depth analysis, come to my live streams every single morning, but I wanted to give a general update of where the NASDAQ is starting to trade into a very important level here, right? So watch this 13,550, 13,700 zone over the next few trading days. So here's the S&P 500 on the daily chart, and we should all know the level 4,200 on the ES. To me, this is the line in the sand. This is where you either flip to the upside or continue to see weakness under this level. I've talked about this level. This was back in February. I talked about it here in early April. Talked about how important this 4,200 is, and we can see that that level is still rejecting. We are still stuck under 4,200 on the S&P 500 futures, and over the last month, we really have not moved anywhere. So for me, it is still about this 4,200 on the ES. If we zoom out and get a larger picture here of where the futures are, sure, there might be some short-term upside and downside volatility to trade, but if I zoom out and really get a whole picture here of the S&P, 4,200 on the ES futures is still huge here, a very big level that we are still rejecting. So make sure to keep an eye on that 4,200 over the next few trading days, even maybe the next few months if we continue to trade sideways like this. So guys, this video was never intended to be too long. I just wanted to do a quick market update on the NASDAQ, the S&P, the divergence that we're seeing, making sure you're aware of it, making sure you're aware of that NASDAQ level, this S&P 500 level at 4,200. If you guys did enjoy today's video, press that like button. I hope you got some kind of an update here. A little bit of a busy Tuesday for me. I have to sort of get out of here pretty quickly, but I wanted to at least put something out there for you guys. That NASDAQ level, make sure to watch out for it. S&P and that market divergence is something to pay attention to. If you enjoyed the video, press that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to come to the pre-market live streams every single morning where we will stay updated on how this market continues to trade. Thank you guys once again, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.